Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your host of today's episode. And today on the show, we have Jonathan Hewitt, CEO and founder of Life Keto Martial Arts and Personal Development, as my guest. We're going to be learning about his business, his journey to business ownership, best practices, and challenges that he faced to give you that inside look to what it's like to build and operate a business. Welcome, Jonathan. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, well, I absolutely love that we already touched on a little bit in our before we got started on what you do, and I'm very excited to dive into what you do. So, before we get into all things business, though, I'd love to share a little bit about you with our audience. So, take us back as far as you'd like and share a bit about yourself.
So, uh, like many people, you look back and you see your journey, how it started. So, when I graduated college, I was already working during college on Wall Street. And that was kind of like the vibe where I grew up in Connecticut. Everybody was very business oriented. But I was fortunate I got to be around a lot of people that were very successful when I was working at this on Wall Street. And one guy came up to me and he goes, "Listen, I'm in my 30s. I'm rich. I have an ulcer. I have an awful marriage. Get out of here while you can." And I was like, "Wow, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's just not a healthy lifestyle." And somehow that really hit me very deeply. And then I started observing a lot of different people that I was around, had an opportunity, not only in business, but in other things like TV commercials and stuff. I was around a lot of different people when I was doing some of that work. And I started getting this sense that people weren't really deeply happy and at peace with themselves and how they were living. It was more like this, we all put on like some Halloween costume that we're supposed to be a certain way and show up to life a certain way and do this and do that. And somehow, without thinking about it, we think if we do that, that's going to lead to true happiness and fulfillment. And then many people that actually get to that point feel like they've been tricked on some level. Like, wait, I'm
Hmm.
really not that happy. I'm really not that peaceful or confident inside. So that really hit me very deeply. And somehow when I graduated college, I decided to change my career path. And I didn't know where I was going with it, but I knew I wanted to figure out how you actually truly become happy and fulfilled. So I did a lot of training and studying and internal different systems. And I started hearing common messages like if you're in the moment, if you're in your heart, if you're authentic, if you can flow and adapt and be resilient, to be kind, all of these things kind of create the magic stew of being happy and fulfilled. So I was like, wow, that's really neat. And but so many times I had studied different systems or philosophies, I always felt like at some point it became like extra stuff like dogma and do this. And but I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So I started taking out the things to me that were the simplest, most powerful skills that we wanted to develop. And then I started asking myself, well, what are ways that kids, teenagers, and adults can all develop these skills in a way that's family friendly? So from there, I developed a personal development system for kids, teens, and adults, and for parents, and for school teachers, and for businesses. I do corporate seminars where people learn to be very grounded and connected to a very deep sense of themselves and to be able to collaborate and flow and work as a team and to peak perform, but not out of trying to prove ourselves, out of living from a much deeper place inside. So once I really started getting into that training and my life completely transformed and my reality of life completely changed to where much of my day I just feel very happy and peaceful and fulfilled, whether I'm washing dishes or teaching a class or doing the business part of our business. So it teaches what I think we do is we teach people how to live. And I think most of us are never taught that.
That's very powerful. That I absolutely love this. It's going to be a great conversation because that's really huge, especially when you had that almost a hidden blessing of that man telling you, get out now. Like, imagine if you didn't hear that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel very, very fortunate, very blessed, all those words, because at a relatively young age, I realized I was fortunate with this too. I remember asking some man, another man, there was a wise guy I met in New York City. I said, "Hey, I have a lot of things going for me, but something's missing. And I don't know what that is. I feel like a hole in my heart." And he goes, "Well, most people fill that with spirituality of some sense." I'm like, "What's that?" And he told me to read this book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And I read that book and it just kind of opened my mind that there's another way of living as opposed to just being in the rat race, that there's actually a way of living differently. So at that point, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do this and live this way. And I didn't really know where it was going to take me, but today it's been almost 33 years of having our business and of working with thousands and thousands of people all ages and seeing people transform, whether it's a stressed out executive or somebody not feeling very confident with themselves, whatever it is, people become more balanced and integrated in their mind, body, spirit. So it's very, very fulfilling for me and for myself, but also fulfilling seeing so many people transform how they live.
Definitely. It's like living on purpose fulfills so much more than, yeah, living in the rat race, for sure.
Yep,
Mm.
very much.
Wonderful. Well, very excited to dive into kind of the meat and potatoes of what your business is and who you serve. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I want to know what was the spark when you decided to start the martial arts? Like when you started keto, how did
Yeah.
that come about? How did that opportunity form?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's two big pieces to this. One was a friend of mine had moved to Austin before I had, and he started a martial arts school, and he asked me if I wanted to be his business partner. And I didn't know about living in Austin. I didn't know if I wanted to, do martial arts for a living, if you will. But I was open. So I came to Austin and we did this thing. So that was a big point, and then we separated our businesses many, many years ago. But another big point was we were teaching these life skills to kids, teens, and adults, but the way we were moving in martial arts was very rigid. So we teach all this stuff about flow and be with your breath and be peaceful and all that, but our martial arts were very, very tight and rigid. And back in 2006, I met this like world famous warrior kind of guy, and he just said, listen, the way you're moving is not healthy for you or your partners. You want to move in a way that's actually healthy and more fluid. And I couldn't understand it at first. I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is how you do martial arts. And he's like, no, really, it's not. I mean, it's a way, but it's not the best way as far as how it feels and also effectiveness. So that was a big turning point. It was almost like for me when somebody in New York said to me, like, hey, get out of here. Like, this is not the path you want. This guy opened up another door to me of not only is there a better way of living, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but physically, there's another way of doing it that's way better that I never knew. So these magical moments brought together like my passion for human well-being. I enjoy business a lot. I love working with people. I love collaborating. I love movement and health. So somehow all these pieces started like coming together in this amazing stew or fruit salad, or whatever. And then it just got clearer and clearer and clearer of who we are and how we serve people and the different things we offer. And I always knew from the get-go that it was about personal development, but it's taken some years. Like I have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 Amazon best-selling books for adults and for kids and parenting books. And I have video programs and I have so a whole personal development branch and programs of our work that are all standalone, but we teach those through martial arts infused in every class. So that now I feel for the first time, and I also few months ago started something called the Spiritual Ninja Podcast, where I interview people that have very deep spiritual path and are also elite performers. So whether it's authors, CEOs, world-class athletes, all different types of people, spiritual teachers, religious leaders. So bringing together again this deep essence of living with performing at a high level in the world. So all these different ways I'm serving different people in a way that suits them, hopefully.
Oh, wonderful. What's the name of your podcast again?
The Spiritual Ninja Podcast.
I'm gonna check that out because I absolutely love like self-development stuff and
It's I've had fascinating guests, like the one I just put up this week. I mean, I was just so moved by this guy. He's an 80-year-old elder, indigenous man from America, Native American, and to hear like the depth of the wisdom of how they live with nature was so
Mhm.
humbling to me. And then I've had, famous authors and rabbis and people, Russian Orthodox, all different religions and philosophies coming together and sharing. their path. So it's been, for me, it's been super meaningful and fulfilling. I'm meeting people I've never met before, and I'm having this like hour and a half, like intimate, deep conversation with people where they're like, wow, I've never talked about this before. I've never shared this with people, even in my own life. And so I love having this privilege and opportunity of having these conversations.
Isn't that the beautiful thing about podcasting? You get to know people right at the very moment you start the conversation and become friends. You build a relationship right in front of people's eyes, which is really
It's
cool.
amazing. Yeah, no, what's cool too is going when you look in your life at different things. So going back to New York City, when I referred to that man, Dan Millman and the Peaceful Warrior,
Uh,
I was out of college. I picked up at the time I don't know how old you are, but you dial 1411 for information to get a phone number.
yeah.
And so I was in New York. He lived in California. I'm like, 1411, can I have Dan Millman's phone number? So I call him, I get him on the phone. And I'm like, hey, could you be my teacher like you had in the book? And he said, well, I've had experiences, but I haven't realized that state of being that I talk about. So I said, okay, well, I want to do that with my life. Years later, one of my friends is at his seminar, and this guy's like, world famous guy. Send one of my books to him. He sends me an email. We have a couple email correspondences. Then we find out we are trained under the same martial art teacher I'm talking about a moment ago. So he sees some videos. I sent him some videos that I made on social media for this system of martial art. He says, hey, can we get on Zoom? We have this deep conversation like this. And then like, hey, I've never thought about doing this, but do you want to do a podcast together? And he goes, well, I don't, but if you decide to do it, I'd be honored to be your first guest. And I thought, well, let me think about it, And then a couple of days later, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so he was my first guest. So this whole full circle of like 30 something years later, here and I am this having this incredible conversation. And then that led to all these other beautiful people I'm interviewing. So
Oh, wow. I could talk to you like side quest, another another
yeah,
podcast
yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But that's very cool. So I wanna, yeah, kind of bring us back to your business now.
Yeah, I
Now,
want to say one thing about that before you ask your question. So this is part of the point to me. I think it's really important is when people are doing business. Sometimes people get fixated on like, oh, let me market it, let me do this, let me do that. But if you're sensitive, like you spoke about before we got online about trusting your intuition and your instincts. So if you really listen to, wow, what am I about? What really turns me on? What makes me feel like, wow, like I would do what I do. I would pay to do what I do. I'm fortunate I make a very nice living doing it, but I would pay to do it because it's so meaningful to me. So when you decide or if you think about starting a business, you want it to like permeate out of you that it's something that is so important to you. So then you have this deep, deep motivation of why you're doing what you're doing. And a lot of people know about the why and all that, but it's like beyond the words of like what makes you want to get up and live you in the world. And I think that's a really important starting point for a business because then all these things that I did and all these things and these stories and Dan Millman, this and that, they all come together and they're different messages of like, oh, I have this instinct to do this podcast, even though I never had an interest in it. But because of this interaction with him and me reaching out to him with these videos years later, it created this connection, which created this next thing. So it's being open to different things, expanding and growing in an organic way. So it's
mm,
to me, all the steps have been very intuitive. I haven't thought, okay, I'm going to set out to have this plan done in 5 years. You can do that. But to me, sometimes we get so fixated on the goals and the checking off the list that we miss the juice of why we're doing what we're doing. So that to me is my first most important thing about business.
oh, that's beautiful. That's really insightful. I like that. So I do want to take it back to kind of like the structure of your business
Please.
and looking at now, when did you found the company?
1993.
Okay, amazing. And do you have any other business partners within it or board of directors, anything like that, like
Well,
ownership?
my wife is technically my partner, but she's an interior designer, so she's but yes, I mean, I still, we talk about things, but I have a great team. I have people that have been on my team for one young woman has her business degree and she's been with me for 20 something years. Another man, there's a main teacher, a school teacher, has been with me for 20 something years. Another school teacher has been with me for 15 years. And the other one's been with me for 10. So we have a phenomenal team and we collaborate with everything we do.
Incredible. Yeah. So how many total team members do you have right now, did you say?
Well, that's a good question. It changes as we're speaking. No, so there are four like lead instructors and then a couple assistant instructors and then one full-time operations director and then two part-time operations.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Now, looking at where you're at in business today, what is something you want to build in, say, the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see your company going?
Yeah, I think what we do from what we see and what we hear is very unique. And so the great thing about that is the depth and the transformation. The challenge of it is because from the get-go, I've had people come up to me like, hey, you should scale this, you should franchise this. And my wife's always like, it's difficult to even find teachers with us to be able to do it, let alone someone that's not like training with
Mhm.
us. So, but if I could press a button, I would like to take everything we have, and I have a lot more like in books and things now, but to be able to have it where it can be scaled, where more people could do it. They can't be here in Austin, that you can do the books and the videos and all that, but then maybe would have some more hands-on contact in the work that we do, because it's a lot of it's the physical part of the martial arts, the way we do it. It's really relationship training and life training more than who can beat who up. And so I think that part of it's really valuable, and I don't know like how people could teach that if they're not practicing and experiencing it. So, but yeah, I
Yeah.
would like to uh, continue. At one point, I really tried to do that, and then I realized I'm just going to do my work and build it organically and just kind of trust the process and
Mhm.
focus on that. But I also see that if we could, I would like to reach more people. I think that would be as long as there's the depth offered with it.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I love that. Now, looking at, again, this kind of actually goes back to my next question, which is your ideal client. So you work with, you mentioned all ages. So if I was an ideal client checking you out online, going to check out your establishment, how would I know I was a good fit for what you bring?
So that is a really good question. And I years ago I worked with this very well-known consultant, and he goes, "I know your work helps everyone, but you can't market to everybody, right?" And so that's a big business thing. I'm like, "Yes, I understand that." So for me, I would say, "Oh, it's somebody that's already aware of mindfulness and consciousness and social emotional learning and health and well-being and can afford it, like all that." You're like, "Okay, that's a great client because they're really coming to you for what we do." But also, I've had people coming in that seem like they had zero understanding or sense of what we're doing. And then they transformed so much that it's hard for me to say. I mean, I think my ideal client would be somebody that is so open to their own personal transformation that when they come, they start hearing it through that lens of like, oh, wow, this is actually helping me become truly confident,
Hmm.
really believing in myself, not just pretending, and knowing how to work with my inner insecurities and fears, and knowing how to have healthy relationships, and knowing how to move my body in a way that feels good and healthy. So that's my ideal client because they're open to their own well-being. But with that being said, we have people that come in that are climbing on the walls because they're so out of control with their focus and they learn, or people that are so afraid to come into the room and they learn. So again, it's hard to say, but yes, if you said an ideal client to be somebody that realizes what we're doing and wants that and has the time and money to do that.
Definitely. I bet some of those transformations are incredible to see.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So it's so like touches your heart and soul to see somebody wake up to their own beauty and just be like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it could be this easy, right?
Hmm.
Once I let down the layers of facades.
Oh, definitely. And this kind of brings me into, challenges, which is something we're all faced with and how we face challenges. What is something in business that you're challenged with right now as a company?
Um, in this moment, I I don't feel that, but I do, and I have, and I'll tell you what I see. Just like a family, just like ourselves, just like a business, there can be too much structure where people don't have the space to feel their freedom. And then there could be the flip side where it's sloppy and there aren't enough systems. And so
Mm,
it's like everyone's just kind of left to their own habits without a clarity of maybe some best ways, a variety of ways of doing something on the outside, right? Like for me at our my business, I hope and see that people have the commitment of I want to show up as my best and do my best and help people, but that there's a lot of room for interpretation there. So I think looking at myself as I see myself more as a leader than a manager, but
mm,
looking from the management perspective, a challenge for me was to realize that I can't just be a leader if there's not somebody managing or I need to manage or someone else has to manage because I think
mm,
people in general, most people need some kind of general guidelines and feedback loops of how they're doing and that type of thing. And so because a lot of times I just felt like, oh, I'm just going to do this and everyone's doing their best and it works out, it left a lot of room for lack of communication and different interpretations. And I think sometimes inner conflicts with people that could have been easily addressed and beforehand of like, hey, I'm feeling this thing or this wasn't happening. Can we talk about it? And so in hindsight, I see how I could have been better with that. And through the years, I've gotten better and also have people on our team that have stepped into that role some. And so I think it's really important, like for me to see, okay, for a business to run really well, you have to have the right people, but also they need to know what they're doing and have some ideas of like having space to improve it and say, hey, I found a better way. Can I show it to you? But also understanding that there are certain things we want to do and we need to follow through and not to be so like freestyle. And to me, I always
mm.
think back to everything like in movement. If I'm too rigid, it doesn't work very well. But if I'm too sluggish, it doesn't work very well. So it's this quality of fullness, but not tense.
Yes, it's very much like almost a yin and yang of like to have the hard and soft, like
Yep,
the structure and the flow. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Again, we could talk on another side quest podcast about
yep,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I absolutely love that. That's very powerful. So, looking at your role as a business owner, wearing many hats, how are you finding success in structuring where like what you're working on, whether it be more in the business or more on the business, or is there something there that you're working on currently?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think as you have a business and you start seeing your strengths and challenges and interests and passions and other people on your team, you start seeing some pictures. So at one point, because a lot of people that I know that own schools or successful businesses, they're like, oh, you shouldn't be working in your business. You should be working on it. You need to remove yourself. So I started teaching less and less and less. And then I'm like, wait a second. I love teaching. And also me not being there was causing some of the things I was talking about in our business. Like people are like, where's Jonathan and what this whole type of dynamic. And so for me, realizing like, okay, I love teaching, so that's in my business, and for me, that's great. So I don't want to be working on my business as far as that. I want to be working in my business. And then there's certain things that I'm like, okay, I don't need to know every detail of every student, of every interaction and operational thing and financial thing, but I need to be able to have a dashboard to look at the numbers, right? For example, that would be an example. So for me today, I'm more and more fine tuning of where's the best use of my time. So curriculum development, teaching, writing
Hmm.
books, creating video programs, doing the podcast. These are things that are having a bigger impact on our community and the work as a whole than me maybe every night entering somebody's information for a membership or something. So I see that more and more of me working on some of the creative things that I've getting a lot of satisfaction from. Because for a long time I didn't do that. It was always ongoing things where this is, no, I'm completing this book and putting it out to the world. It's like a start and a finish, right? And so I'm enjoying doing that. I'm enjoying teaching. I'm enjoying creating curriculum. And then as a team, when we have our staff meetings, our team meetings to really collaborate on whatever the topic is. So I have a really nice balance now of teaching and of creating and of doing the business.
That's wonderful. Now, how did you find that, or is that something you're currently working on, like outsourcing to, is it staff members maybe to do some of those other tasks, or how are you structuring that?
Yeah, and so the operation thing's been interesting because for a long time ago, but for a long time it was my wife doing the operations. And then at one point when we got much bigger, we had another person assisting her. So it's been years since then, but now we have one person that was doing kind of all of it. And at some point, she's like, this is just way too much. And I didn't really know that. So this is another area where the communication could have been better both ways, probably. And so then we hired someone to help her who was coming in, who was a professional, like works at UT and all. And she said, Jonathan, this is just way too much for us two people. I'm like, okay, wow, I didn't realize that. I'm glad you're telling me. And so we just hired another virtual assistant to support them. So the layering's happening, like our main director, she's seeing which things, like I've done, wow, which things are most important for me to do, for her to do, which things am I losing passion and someone else can do? And so it's kind of layering now with that of she's
Mm.
doing the same thing I'm doing in a different way. And then we're finding out of the two support part-time people in operations which makes more sense with which person and when.
Okay, so a lot of fluctuating into roles and development of roles. What has been the hardest part about that? Because it's like a whole new ball game then to divvy out the
Yeah.
tasks. But yeah, how's that been?
Yeah, I think like some people, and thankfully our director is one of these people, they're very detailed and sequential and they're looking for things to make sense in that way. Or a lot of times I think I'm a little more intuitive and project ideas and things like that. So once we had this conversation, I said, okay, well, can you put everything down that needs to happen to run what we're doing?
Hmm.
And then start seeing the things that in the ideal world that you would do and you wouldn't do and all that. And then let's look at the hours you're working and then let's look at the other hours they're working and see what works. And so now we're in the process of doing that of, okay, well, I don't really need to do this. It's okay if someone's doing it at a
Hmm.
different time of day because it's not directly with a family from our school. So we're figuring out as we speak, actually, like she just met with the other assistant last night of what things can be handed off in a way that makes sense.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because when there is that fluctuation, it's like, okay, how do we structure yet
Yeah. So
see what
getting somebody structured to do that helps, right?
Yeah.
Like that way, like I said, okay, well, what do we need? So now we have all these lists. Okay, well now can we take those lists and see what you can hand off and then find someone to do that? And so having someone to be able to, because if I did it, I could use AI obviously, but still it would take a lot of time. Maybe she took a lot of time, but she knows because she's doing it, right?
Yeah.
So making sure that that's trying to help you structure is good with structuring would be very important.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation so far. Now I want to take us through the rapid fire Q&A. So I'm going to be asking you four questions. Just answer very top of mind.
Answer what?
Very top of mind.
Okay.
All right. Question number one is, what is a key to success for you?
To living from your heart and soul.
Definitely. Number two is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
Do the right thing. Always do the right thing because even if it lose a little money doing the right thing in the long run, you have a reputation and people know if you have a person of integrity. And so even people that haven't been to our school for a year still refer people, and then all of a sudden they're coming back with their kids or so you relationships are very important. And so always do the right thing.
Definitely. Number three is this could be a book or a piece of content, a podcast, anything that's resonated with you recently.
The first thing that popped to mind was this monk named Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese monk who's passed away. But everything he spoke about, and I see like his like quotes by him and all pretty regularly. Everything is always about just being in the moment, being in your heart, being authentic and caring for people. So I always feel when I throw everything away and like what's important really, you get back to being authentic and living this way and caring for people. And I think that applies to business and very obvious ways, hopefully.
Definitely. I love that. Number four is if I gave you a magic wand and you could overnight improve one aspect of your business, what would it be?
The ability to train other people to teach what we do all over the world in a way that was very aligned and honored the depth of what we do.
That is great. Love that answer. Well, thank you for answering our rapid fires. Well, let's help get that process started. We'd love to bring people to your door. So how can people connect with you and your company online?
Well, if you go to lifeketo, lifekekido.com, we have all of our martial arts programs on there, our self-defense, women's self-defense. We also have under the family life skills section, we have uh, kids books that teach social emotional learning. We have adult personal development books, and we also have video programs and parenting programs. And so going there, then also if you would like podcasts, the Spiritual Ninja podcast is really awesome as far as the guests. And all my books are on Amazon as well. So just go to look up Jonathan Hewitt on there. And I have a variety of books
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for our final question of the day. What is most inspiring to you today?
that when you let go trying and forcing things, that you're actually better at doing what you're trying to do from a more calm, relaxed state of mind and body. And you actually do better and feel better.
I'm writing that down. Um, Thank you. That is very inspiring to me as well. And you were a great guest. I really love what you had to say about your business and philosophy. So thank you for being on the show today.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.